Nearly 50 years after its premiere, Happy Days still stands among the list of television's most timeless sitcoms. However, behind the scenes, there were secrets the public wasn't meant to know about. Henry Winkler sheds light on the drama behind Happy Days in the long-awaited tell-all from the set. Finally, these revelations give insight into what really went on behind the scenes. Stay tuned, as after discovering these unbelievable show secrets, your perspective on the next Happy Days rerun will be completely different. The show's creator wanted to call it cool. Test audiences, despite finding the proposed title cool catchy, raised concerns that it evoked associations with cigarettes. This feedback prompted producer Carl Kleinschmidt to propose an alternative. How about calling it Happy Days? That's what we're going to show. The title Happy Days resonated with the idea of reminiscing about joyous moments from the past, conjuring images of carefree times and cherished memories. It was a name that promised warmth, laughter, and a sense of comfort, a perfect fit for a sitcom set in the 1950s. Kleinschmidt's insight in renaming the show not only addressed the audience's concerns, but also aligned more closely with the show's intended tone and message. Happy Days was supposed to be set in the 1920s, not the 1950s. When Gary Marshall was initially approached by Paramount executives Michael Eisner and Tom Miller in 1971 to develop a new sitcom, their original vision was something set in the 1920s or 30s. However, Marshall expressed his lack of familiarity with that era, suggesting instead a setting from his own youth, the 1950s. Drawing from personal experience, Marshall proposed a pilot centered around a Midwestern family acquiring their first television set, a rarity in their neighborhood. The storyline revolved around the teenage son's scheme to use the TV as a chick magnet. Despite Marshall's creative pitch, the series failed to sell, and the pilot was relegated to Love American Style, which Marshall humorously described as the dumping ground of failed pilots. Ron Howard signed on to avoid going to Vietnam. Ron Howard had his sights set on a career behind the camera when he enrolled at USC's School of Cinematic Arts. However, a pressing concern loomed over his plans: his low draft number. With the abolishment of student deferments by Uncle Sam, Howard faced the prospect of being drafted into military service. Seeking a solution, Howard explored the option of an occupational deferment, which required his employment to be directly linked to the employment of 30 or more individuals. Fortunately, Paramount, being a sizable company with a substantial workforce, offered Howard the opportunity to secure such a deferment. By signing on to portray Richie Cunningham in the series, Howard hoped to safeguard his deferment status. Despite the initial setback of the pilot not selling, Howard found relief in knowing that President Nixon had abolished the draft shortly after filming wrapped up. This turn of events allowed Howard to pursue his ambitions with a newfound sense of ease, knowing that his immediate future was no longer overshadowed by the specter of military conscription. Happy Days predates American Graffiti. George Lucas's critically acclaimed film from 1973 sparked a widespread fascination with 1950s nostalgia, despite being set in 1962. Fred Roos, the casting director who had previously collaborated with Ron Howard on The Andy Griffith Show, recommended him to Lucas for the role of Steve Bolander. To gauge Howard's suitability for the part of an 18-year-old high school student, Lucas reviewed the Love and the Happy Days episode of Love American Style. Following the immense success of American Graffiti, ABC seized the opportunity to capitalize on the trend of 1950s nostalgia. Consequently, Gary Marshall's project, which had previously failed to gain traction, was given a second chance and resurrected. A monkey could have played Fonzie. When Henry Winkler received the callback after his initial audition for the role of Arthur Fonzarelli, he was surprised to find out that another contender was none other than former Monkees drummer Mickey Dolenz. Interestingly, Dolenz later revealed that Winkler confessed to him that he had initially felt intimidated by Dolenz's presence, thinking, "Oh crap, Mickey Dolenz is here, I'll never get it." Dolenz had been Gary Marshall's original choice to portray Fonzie, primarily based on a recent guest appearance he had made as a biker on the show Adam 12. However, despite his strong credentials, Dolenz's towering height of 6 feet posed a challenge. In contrast, Ron Howard stood at 5'9", making him a better physical match for the character. Consequently, Winkler was ultimately deemed a better fit for the role. Happy Days rebooted itself. In the fast-paced world of television today, shows are often expected to capture viewers' attention immediately. If a series fails to attract an audience, networks are quick to pull the plug and replace it with something new. However, back in the 1970s, television networks were more patient, allowing shows the opportunity to grow and find their footing. Happy Days debuted on ABC's primetime lineup during the 1973-74 season and showed promise by ranking a respectable number 16 for the year. However, in the following season, 1974-75, the show faced stiff competition from CBS's immensely popular Good Times and found itself tied with the largely forgotten NBC legal drama Petra Kelly at 48 in the ratings. Recognizing the need for change to secure its future, creator Gary Marshall and the producers made significant adjustments for the third season of Happy Days. The single-camera format was replaced with a traditional 3-camera setup complete with a live studio audience. Additionally, the focus shifted from sensitive, relatable coming-of-age stories to zanier sitcom plots. A character overhaul saw Arthur Fonzie Fonzarelli, previously a minor figure, take on a much larger role, guiding Richie Cunningham through the ups and downs of life. Furthermore, the eldest Cunningham brother, Chuck, disappeared entirely from the storyline after the second season, without any explanation. These alterations proved to be successful, as Happy Days experienced a significant resurgence in its third season. Under the new format, the show soared into the top 10 of the TV ratings, solidifying its place as a beloved classic of American television. The birth of a Fonzie. Fonzie, undoubtedly the most iconic character from Happy Days, captured the hearts of audiences across the nation. Portrayed by Henry Winkler, this leather jacket-clad, tough yet tender-hearted figure became a cultural phenomenon, gracing countless T-shirts and lunchboxes throughout the 70s and 80s. With his trademark catchphrases, "Aye," and "sit on it," Fonzie epitomized coolness and shot Winkler to stardom, solidifying his place in television history. Despite his immense popularity, Fonzie's character didn't come fully formed. In fact, he wasn't even originally named Fonzie. Creator Gary Marshall initially wanted to name his cool character Mash, after his Italian surname, Masciarelli. However, due to the existence of the TV show M.A.'s H, Marshall's friend, reporter Bob Bruner, suggested the name Arthur Fonzarelli, or Fonzie, as an alternative. Henry Winkler, determined to make Fonzie distinct from previous cool characters in movies and TV, brought his own unique flair to the role. Unlike his predecessors who relied on cliches like combing their hair or sticking cigarette packets in their T-shirt sleeves, Winkler infused Fonzie with authenticity. In one memorable moment from the pilot episode, where the script called for Fonzie to approach a mirror and comb his hair, Winkler improvised by simply holding up his comb and declaring, "Hey, that's perfect. I don't need to comb." This spontaneous act became emblematic of Fonzie's effortless coolness, forever shaping the character's identity. How Fonzie found his leather jacket. Fonzie's iconic leather jacket, synonymous with his cool persona, wasn't an instant fixture on the show. ABC executives initially prohibited Henry Winkler from wearing leather on screen, concerned that it would associate Fonzie too closely with criminals and gang members. Instead, they insisted that Fonzie sport a more conventional windbreaker. However, Winkler found it challenging to exude coolness in the lightweight, unassuming windbreaker. Reflecting on this, Winkler humorously remarked in an ABC special, "It was very hard to be cool in a golf jacket with a very, very flimsy collar that would not stay up." Recognizing the importance of Fonzie's signature leather jacket to the character's image, Gary Marshall, the co-creator and producer of Happy Days, devised a clever solution. Marshall proposed that Fonzie could wear the leather jacket when he was near his motorcycle, citing safety reasons as justification. This stipulation allowed Marshall to circumvent ABC's restrictions while preserving Fonzie's trademark style. Consequently, Happy Days writers were instructed to always depict Fonzie alongside his motorcycle, leading to some amusing scenarios of Fonzie riding it indoors or tinkering with it in his apartment. As Happy Days gained popularity, ABC relented, allowing Fonzie to wear the leather jacket freely, regardless of his proximity to his motorcycle. This newfound freedom enabled Fonzie to don his iconic attire whenever and wherever he pleased. Henry Winkler struggled to read his scripts. Henry Winkler's struggles with learning difficulties began early in his life, despite his earnest efforts in school. His German-born parents, grappling with their own wartime experiences, unwittingly exacerbated his challenges by nicknaming him Dummer Hund, Dumb Dog, which further undermined his confidence. Despite his academic struggles, Winkler's resilience and determination propelled him forward. Remarkably, Winkler remained undiagnosed with dyslexia until he reached the age of 31. A revelation that shed light on the challenges he had faced throughout his academic journey. Even before his diagnosis, Winkler's indomitable spirit and quick thinking were evident during his audition for Happy Days. When presented with a script featuring only 6 lines, Winkler encountered a formidable obstacle, his inability to read them due to his undiagnosed dyslexia. Undeterred, he improvised his lines during the audition, offering the producers a glimpse into the essence of the character he envisioned. Unfazed by the deviation from the script, Winkler confidently assured the producers that if given the opportunity, he would faithfully deliver the lines as written. Little did he know that this audition would mark the beginning of a transformative journey, propelling him to stardom and cementing his legacy as one of television's most beloved characters. Happy Days gave the world a lot of music. In the early days of Happy Days, producers were keen to immerse audiences in the nostalgic charm of the mid-1950s. To set the tone, they chose Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and His Comets as the opening theme song for the first 2 seasons. Originally released in 1955, this iconic track was the first rock song to claim the top spot on the American pop chart. Haley recorded a new version specifically for Happy Days, capitalizing on the show's popularity. Interestingly, the original Rock Around the Clock experienced a resurgence on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1974 thanks to its inclusion on the American Graffiti soundtrack and exposure on Happy Days. As the show gained momentum, another 50s-inspired song took center stage as the opening theme. Happy Days, composed by renowned songwriters Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel and performed by the duo Pratt and McLean, became a chart-topping hit, climbing into the top 5. The musical influence of Happy Days extended beyond the small screen. Reflecting Richie Cunningham's involvement in a rock band, several cast members ventured into real-world music releases. Donnie Most, known for his role as Ralph Malph, dropped a self-titled album in 1976. Anson Williams, who portrayed Potsy, saw his single Deeply reach number 93 on the pop chart a year later. Even Scott Baio, the show's resident teen heartthrob, scored a record deal, offering up a catchy new wave track titled The Boys Are Out Tonight as a standout highlight. The origins of Mork. Happy Days, while primarily rooted in realism, wasn't afraid to embrace the bizarre. There's that memorable episode from 1984 when Fonzie falls for a ghost, and who could forget the time when an alien made a surprise appearance? In the late 70s, co-creator Gary Marshall faced a unique challenge when his son expressed disinterest in the show. "Why don't you like it?" Marshall asked. His son's response, "Well, there are no space people." He was craving the intergalactic adventures of Star Wars. To meet this demand, Marshall decided to inject a dose of outer space into Happy Days, introducing a quirky alien character named Mork from the planet Ork. Mork encounters Fonzie and, to blend it with the show's 50s setting, convinces him it's all a dream. But suddenly, it wasn't just a dream anymore. We decided to build a show around Mork. Enter frenetic comedian Robin Williams, plucked from the vibrant Los Angeles nightclub scene to portray Mork, both on Happy Days and its successful spin-off, Mork and Mindy, which, unlike its predecessor, was set in the contemporary era. Surprisingly, Williams wasn't Marshall's initial choice. The role was first offered to 70s comedian and impressionist John Byner, who accepted. However, just before shooting began, Byner had a change of heart. Oddly enough, close to production, Byner backed out of playing an alien on a TV series, Marshall recounted in his book My Happy Days in Hollywood. Byner's agency then proposed 3 potential replacements: comedians Jeff Altman, Richard Lewis, and ultimately Robin Williams. Bill Haley recorded a new version of his signature hit for the opening credits. Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and his Comets dominated the Billboard chart for 8 consecutive weeks in 1955. While the original single version was featured just once on Happy Days, specifically in the inaugural episode, Haley recorded a fresh rendition exclusively for the series. This revamped version became the iconic opening theme song for the first 2 seasons of the show. Pat Morita had trouble with his accent. Noriyuki Pat Morita, a native of California, spoke English fluently, devoid of any discernible accent, matching that of a native speaker. However, just before filming his initial scene as Arnold, director Jerry Paris reluctantly relayed to Morita that he needed to adopt an accent. This directive stemmed from network executives' belief that Arnold, clearly of Asian descent, should speak with a distinct accent. Morita complied, resorting to an exaggerated Chinese Pidgin English dialect as instructed. Around 6 weeks later, Paris revisited Morita, accompanied by a representative from Standards and Practices. The S&P representative informed Morita, for politically correct considerations, that he could no longer portray Arnold, who, based on Morita's accent, was evidently a Chinese-American character, despite being Japanese-American himself. Thinking on his feet, Morita quickly explained that Arnold's last name was Takahashi, clarifying that he was of mixed heritage, with a Japanese father and a Chinese mother. Happy Days changed up its cast a lot. Throughout its 11-season journey, Happy Days saw a revolving door of characters making their entrances and exits. Arnold, the proprietor of the popular teen hangout Arnold's, bid farewell after 3 seasons when actor Pat Morita secured a role on the sitcom Mr. T and Tina. In his place, Al Molinaro stepped in as the new owner, Al Del Vecchio. Season 5 welcomed Scott Baio to the cast as Charles Chachi Arcola, Fonzie's cousin, Richie's drummer, and Joni's beau. Linda Goodfriend also joined in Season 5, portraying the recurring character Lori Beth Allen, Richie's romantic interest, who later became a series regular after tying the knot with Richie, even though, ironically, Richie himself was no longer on the show. Ron Howard, the actor behind Richie, departed Happy Days in 1980 to pursue a career in film direction. His supposed replacement? Ted McGinley as Roger Phillips, a nephew of the Cunninghams, doubling as a high school gym coach and a foil to Fonzie. This transition also introduced Kathy Silvers as Jenny Piccolo, Joni's frequently mentioned yet never seen best friend. As the series approached its conclusion, Crystal Bernard and Billy Warlock gained screen time as Howard's niece KC and Roger's brother Flip, respectively, stepping in for Aaron Moran, Joni, and Baio, who left to headline Joni Loves Chachi. Fonzie didn't really love Pinky. The Season 4 premiere of Happy Days generated immense excitement with a 3-part storyline titled Fonzie Loves Pinky. The buzz surrounded Fonzie's quest for true love, with the focus on his affection for Pinky Tuscadero, a fearless cyclist. Roz Kelly portrayed Pinky, catching the attention of ABC executive Fred Silverman, who saw her as a potential female Fonzie. This pairing garnered significant media attention in the summer of 1977, almost rivaling the anticipation of Charles and Diana's wedding 3 years later. However, the integration of Kelly's brash and abrasive character into the ensemble cast didn't go as planned. She struggled to mesh with the rest of the cast, particularly her intended romantic interest, Henry Winkler's Fonzie. In a 1976 interview with People magazine, Kelly expressed her difficulty relating to her co-stars, citing her upbringing on welfare as a barrier to connecting with the affluent Winkler. Consequently, Pinky's character was quietly phased out of the series. In 1975, John Lennon paid a visit to the Happy Days set. In 1975, the cast received an unexpected visit from none other than the former Beatle himself, John Lennon, who showed up unannounced on the Paramount lot. It turned out that John's son, Julian Lennon, was a huge fan of the show, prompting his father to arrange a visit to meet the cast. Anson Williams, known for his role as Potsy, recalled the encounter, describing Lennon as very pleasant, yet somewhat reserved. Despite his shyness, Lennon graciously signed autographs and drew doodles for various crew members and grips. However, Williams and the other main stars refrained from requesting autographs or doodles, considering themselves too cool to ask a fellow celebrity for such mementos. Gary Marshall gave Robin Williams his big break. Interestingly, it was Gary Marshall's sister, Ronnie, who played a pivotal role in discovering the comedian for the show. Marshall's young son, a passionate Star Wars fan, had suggested incorporating space people into Happy Days, leading to the creation of the alien character Mork from Ork. Despite several comedians, such as Dom DeLuise and John Byner, turning down the role, Marshall struggled to find the right fit. It was Ronnie who proposed a stand-up comic she often saw performing on the street with his hat out for tips. Skeptical, Marshall asked her why he should consider someone from the street. Ronnie's response? "Well, his hat is always pretty full." When Robin Williams arrived to film the My Favorite Orkin episode, Henry Winkler, who portrayed Fonzie, admitted that his biggest challenge as an actor was keeping a straight face while Williams unleashed his side-splitting improvisations. Many of the names used on the show were inspired by Gary Marshall's real life. Marshall's wife had a classmate named Potsy Weber, while Richie Cunningham, described as a nice boy, shared the same church as Marshall. Their first family home was situated on Arcola Street. Interestingly, Fonzie was initially intended to be named Arthur Masciarelli, which was Marshall's original surname. However, the Mash didn't quite carry the same appeal as the Fonz. Henry Winkler didn't jump the shark. Winkler wasn't known for his athleticism, but he had a knack for water skiing, which led to the creation of the famous Jump the Shark episode. While Winkler handled all his stunts in the Hollywood Part 3 episode, except for the actual shark jump, the producers didn't want to risk letting him attempt such a daring feat. Interestingly, Winkler wore a customized leather jacket with the lining removed during his time on skis. The cast worked together and played together. Gary Marshall had the idea to form a Happy Days all-star softball team, involving both cast and crew members. He saw it as a chance for everyone to have fun, relieve some stress, promote the show, and support charitable causes. The team frequently competed against other celebrity teams before Major League Baseball games and even embarked on tours to military bases in Europe and Japan. The untold truth of Henry Winkler. Despite Henry Winkler's success on set, his personal life was far from perfect. Before becoming famous, he faced challenges at home. His parents, who had fled from Germany to America just before World War II, carried the scars of their wartime experiences and were often verbally abusive towards him. Can you imagine your parents calling you a dumb dog? Unfortunately, Henry also struggled academically. While it would be wonderful if all teachers were as understanding as Miss Honey, that wasn't always the case. Sometimes there were teachers more akin to Dolores Umbridge. When Henry performed poorly on tests or homework, his parents imposed strict punishments. Adding to his difficulties, Henry had undiagnosed dyslexia. However, since dyslexia wasn't well understood in the 1950s, his teachers didn't recognize it or offer assistance. Instead, Henry was made to feel inadequate. Despite his dyslexia, Henry persevered and never gave up. He managed to graduate on time, nearly completing high school and even secured admission to Emerson College. Yet he didn't stop there. His determination drove him further. Henry had always harbored a passion for acting, and after graduating from Emerson, he set his sights on the Yale School of Drama. During his audition, despite forgetting his lines, he improvised so masterfully that he earned acceptance into the prestigious program. However, upon entering the professional world after graduation, Henry confronted new challenges. His career demanded reading scripts, posing a potential hurdle due to his reading difficulties. Nevertheless, he refused to view this as an insurmountable obstacle. Instead, he embraced it as a test of his abilities. Henry disclosed that he never read the same passage the same way twice in his life. He possessed a remarkable ability to memorize extensive portions swiftly, and for any unfamiliar parts, he improvised with confidence, often eliciting laughter from those around him. This fearless approach opened doors to numerous opportunities in his career. As he had envisioned, Henry secured a role on one of the most beloved sitcoms at the age of 27. Portraying Arthur the Fonz Fonzarelli, he exuded effortless coolness compared to the other characters on the show. Initially not intended as the main character, Henry's portrayal captured the hearts of the audience, compelling producers to elevate his role. Rapidly becoming a fan favorite, he garnered admiration for his talent and his ability to forge connections with people. His catchphrase, though embraced by many, sometimes caused dismay among those around him. Nevertheless, the trajectory of his character didn't unfold as anticipated. Henry's success across 11 groundbreaking seasons elevated him to stardom, yet this very success became a double-edged sword. Realizing that he risked being typecast solely as Fonzie, Henry recognized the necessity for a significant shift to alter public perception, valuing his talent beyond his appearance. Thus, faced with limited options, he made the tough decision to transition away from acting and focus on producing and directing. This transition proved fruitful, with one of his early projects, the acclaimed TV show MacGyver, attesting to his newfound prowess behind the scenes. Beyond his professional endeavors, Henry devoted time to his family, emphasizing a well-rounded life away from the camera. In 1978, Henry tied the knot with Stacey Weitzman, stepping into the role of a father figure for her son Jed from a previous marriage. Little did he know that Jed would spark a realization that would alter his life profoundly. Henry noticed he was unknowingly mirroring the patterns of his own parents as Jed struggled in school. Encouraging him to push harder, Henry failed to realize the deeper similarity between their experiences, the shared feeling of wanting to give up at times. Seeking answers, Henry and Stacey took Jed for testing, uncovering that he had dyslexia. This revelation was a pivotal moment, not just for Jed, but also for Henry and Stacey. I went, "Oh my goodness, I have something with a name," Henry reflected, the realization finally clicking into place. After a hiatus spanning 3 decades, Henry made a comeback to television in 2018 with a leading role in HBO's Barry. Initially met with uncertainty due to its unconventional premise, a hitman turned actor in a comedy series, the show's subsequent success silenced any doubts. Barry's accolades, including numerous awards, highlighted Henry's triumphant return to the small screen, culminating in his first primetime Emmy win in 40 years for Outstanding Supporting Actor. "I am who I am," Henry declared, expressing contentment with his journey despite the learning challenges he faced. His excitement to collaborate with old friends was palpable. Following his retirement, Henry found himself reconnecting with Ron Howard from their Happy Days days while working on the short-lived sitcom Arrested Development. The reunion undoubtedly sparked nostalgic conversations, bridging the gap of decades spent apart.